Okay, so what's up, cyberspace? Welcome to Pointing Out Politicians. My name is Sherman. The reason I'm making this video here is to kind of give you an idea of who I am and why I'm putting out a lot of the information that I'm putting out. Give you a little bit of background from my perspective as a 40-something-year-old black man living in America. Um, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna hit four topic areas that I think are very important, and I'm gonna give you some information from once again from my perspective, my point of view, that you probably don't hear a lot of. It's not something that the media tends to gravitate towards. Um, so what we have is this picture painted of what it is to be black in America. Um, you kind of get an idea of what you think is an idea of how a typical black person thinks. Just a heads up right now, there really is no typical black person. Contrary to what Joe Biden was saying when he referenced about the Hispanic community being a diverse community, almost implying like the black community was not a diverse community. So what I want to do is I want to kind of break that down, once again from my point of view, and kind of paint a picture of maybe some of the differences between a black American, a black male American, the typical white American, which you'll find that the differences aren't really that great, and maybe a whole lot of similarities. So hopefully this will be beneficial to you to kind of maybe come up with some talking points when you find yourself in conversations, and ultimately it comes down to topics of race, as if that's the precursor to every other conversation that is to be had, every other subject, every other topic. You'll kind of have a little something to maybe bring up and put into that conversation to try to expand it a little bit and turn it into a real conversation about real people. So the four things that I want to kind of bring up are: one, the individual; two, politics; three, race and genetics. I'll put those together, race and genetics; and number four is history. All right, so let's get into this. Number one, the individual. What I have to point out immediately up front is that when it comes to individuals, we're all so different, and that's not necessarily predicated upon your race. We'll see two people from the same race, completely different individuals. They can have a completely different perspective, point of view. Let's touch on that perspective. Perspective really just means what you see from where you are. And unless two people are standing in the exact same place, at the same height, I'm talking artistically here, there's no way that they'll see the exact same thing. When you look at an object, it has different sides. So based upon where you're standing, the view is going to change. That has nothing to do with the color of your skin. More so, it has to do with the exact position you're in at that point in time, that exact point in time. So then it becomes a conversation of whether or not where you're standing at right now, the exact position you're in, is due specifically to your race, the color of your skin. That's impossible. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so back to the individual. We have so many differences between us. We have height, tall, short; weight, large, thin, heavy, light; economics, wealthy, not wealthy; middle class, separate categories within the middle class: upper middle class, lower middle class; where you live, cost of living, where you live. It's not like a dollar means the same thing anywhere you're at. It can vary so much. It's just so detailed that what you end up with is millions and millions of possibilities. If you look at the population of the United States of America, we have 330 million people, approximately. It's 330 million different possibilities. And I'm pretty sure that you'll see some consistencies within there that between two individuals, regardless of their race, that's actually greater than the consistencies that you'll find in a different segment within the race. Just follow me for a second. What I'm saying is often you'll find that you have more in common with an individual who doesn't necessarily look like you than you do with an individual who looks a lot like you. Not always the case, but sometimes it is the case. Sometimes you'll find that people who look like you have a completely different perspective on things. And that's not just due to where they're standing, it has a lot to do with what they think about where they're standing, what they believe about where they are. Again, two people in similar circumstances can have a completely different belief about why they're in that circumstance. And that is not determined by the color of a person's skin or their race. Case in point, I'll use two black people, okay? Two black men, both aged 35, both make $60,000 a year, both live in the same town, in the same neighborhood, same subdivision. They're next door neighbors. So you would think that they are pretty much the same, right? And you might assume that they even think the same. But in that scenario, what if one neighbor has a positive mindset and he's grateful? He has a grateful mindset. He appreciates everything that he has. He's proud of his accomplishments, and he wants more, and he believes that he can have more. Conversely, the neighbor feels he has a negative mindset. He feels as if he's been held back. He's a victim. He's been taken advantage of. He's got a completely different view of his situation. He's dissatisfied, but not dissatisfied with himself and his decisions that he's made, the choices that he's made. He's dissatisfied with his environment. He feels as if his environment is completely responsible for where he's at. So you got two people that are similar in almost every other way except for their mindset. They think differently. All right, so they can be the same race and think completely different. Now, on the other side, the other neighbor could be a different race, but he thinks like the person, like one of these men. They've got more in common than the one who's of the same race. So you would think that they would gravitate towards each other. Here's where it gets tricky in America and the way race relations seem to work here. If there was a Sunday and there was a barbecue happening, and the black neighbor and the white neighbor who they think a lot alike get together and have a barbecue, there's a good chance that the other black neighbor who doesn't think like them, doesn't really associate with them like that, is not comfortable around them, would look at that situation and say, that black person who's hanging out with that white person is a sellout. As crazy as that sounds, that's a bit of an extreme. There's so many different points in between. This is often what we see happen because we allow race to kind of dictate the way we move. A lot of us do anyway. And then those who don't are considered to be outliers. Truth of the matter is they may actually be the majority. But in most cases, people like that aren't the most outspoken. So they become the silent majority. Meanwhile, the minority who thinks in terms of extremes ends up, for all intents and purposes, barking the loudest. They're the loudest dog. They just bark, bark, bark. And then that sends a signal up. Now think of the media as a security camera or something that, no, security is a bad word. A monitor that looks for activity. So it trains on the loud one, the one that's making all the noise. And because the whole purpose of media is to draw your attention and to hold your attention so that they can have a reason for existing, make money, things of that nature, they amplify that sound. And then what you end up having is a situation in which that sound seems to be the prevailing thought. You start thinking that most people think that way. Truth of the matter is, I don't think they do. I don't think that's the case. I think that's what the media wants you to believe. In any case, that's what gets attention, and attention is currency. Bottom line, nowadays attention is currency. Attention is how money's made. What you pay attention to is where your dollars go. Now that can be, you got to stop. You can't think in just terms of you opening your wallet and you're spending your money. As you direct your attention there, and that's when you see ads pop up. Everyone wants to get in front of that so they can sell you something. And that's a broad topic in itself, because it can be a physical item, or it can be an idea, or it can be a scenario in which they sell you on a belief that gets more of your attention. And all that travels back to like a racial thing, without regard to the individual. Taking that back to the individual, without regard to the individual, what we have to recognize is that everybody's different. There's so many different versions of people out there. And what's happening in large part is people are being stripped of that individuality. They're being chastised. They're being punished for being an individual. They want to classify people in these lumps, and you just can't do it. It's not possible. It's not even feasible. It's just something that they do to generate control, right? So individuality is something that I think that we're not paying attention to, especially in the conversations when we talk about race. We say black people this, white people that, black man this, the white man that. And as a matter of fact, I witnessed a conversation, or it was supposed to be a conversation, turn into a debate, not really even a debate, because you had two people having two different conversations. There was these two guys that have a pretty decent following on Facebook and on YouTube. One is named Anomaly. Anomaly is, if you look at him, you'd classify him as a white guy. Then you have Young Pharaoh. You look at him, you'd classify him as a black guy. Right? They come from two different schools of thought. Funny enough, they agree on a lot of things. But this conversation literally devolved into a racial type thing. Now, on one hand, Anomaly was trying his best to stick to the point and delve into the topic and go a little bit deeper into what they were supposed to be discussing. But then you had Young Pharaoh on the other side. He was just stuck on race. And although he made some decent points from the beginning, he lost me and he lost a lot of the audience because he couldn't get past that. And it got to a point where he was just saying, you, like everything the white man was responsible for in his mind. He was blaming the white man that he was talking to. And that's just like a microcosm. It takes this broad problem and brings it down where you can really take a look at it. And he spent all his time saying, you got to do this, and until you take responsibility for this and you take responsibility for that. And it's like, take responsibility for what? What are the things that you're saying that the white man did that this individual did to you? What did he do? And when you ask that question, he kept trying to avoid the question. But when you ask that question, what you come to is nothing. And this is the problem that we have when we can't get past race and see people as individuals. We try to hold them accountable for everything that's happened in the past that somebody who looked like them did. Just think about it for a second. Just think about how how stupid that is, for lack of a better word. Okay, so moving on, politics. This is my position, but politics, call them politricks. Poly mean many. So many tricks. They have many tricks to get your vote, to get you to do, or at least go along with what it is that in direction that they want to go. Politics is all about who gets what, where, when, how, who gets what. That's what politics is all about. So what you find is politicians are always often offering to give people things, when the truth of the matter is they don't have anything to give. Take the federal government, for instance. Money. Every dime the federal government has, or quote unquote generates, comes from us, the people. So anytime you expect the government to give you something, you're asking the government to give you somebody else's money. Now we can that's a rabbit hole that we can go into. We can say that some people don't need this much money, and you're spending other people's money on one hand, or they don't need all that. They're greedy. They need to share. They need to pay their fair share. They tax the rich more. Things of that nature. I don't want to go there. I'll talk about that at a different time. But on the most basic level, politicians are there to try to influence you to go along with whatever scheme they have in mind for who gets what. And that's going to be dictated or predicated upon the majority, or getting the vote. So they're going to look at it, they're going to say, okay, what do most people want, or what do the most vocal people want? And let me cater to that. They're just going to cater to it. That's what it's all about, catering to or pandering to the crowd. So they can either get your vote or get you to go along with something. So what we see now is we see me as a black man in America. This is what I see happening. Because some of these messages I feel are directed toward me. And a lot of them I take offense to. Once again, Joe Biden, got to bring him up. This guy sat there on, we ended up what amounts to national TV on the internet. And he said, if you don't know the difference between me and Donald Trump, you ain't black. Really, Joe? Really? I'm gonna take one out of Joe Biden's book. Come on, man. Come on, bro. You know, if I don't know the difference between you and Trump, then I ain't black. So that goes back to the individuality thing. I'm an individual with my own mind, my own thoughts, my own beliefs, and you're telling me that I have to subscribe to whatever train of thought may be because of the color of my skin. So if the prevailing thought among black people, or the perceived prevailing thought among black people, is to go along with Joe Biden or vote for Joe Biden, the politician, then I'm supposed to agree with that because I'm black. And I think what pains me the most is when I see black people that go along with that, black people that accept that, black people that allow that, as if it went in one ear and out the other, as if they really don't understand what this man said, what he meant when he said that. So one of two things happen. I always say that when people don't do something, there's one of two reasons for that. Either they don't know or they don't care. So in terms of that politician, let's evaluate that. If you don't know, what is it that you don't know? You don't know he said that. You don't know what he meant by that. But then you have tons and tons of voices that are laying it out to you, or trying to, even with all this censorship and everything that's in place. But I think you do know. I think you just don't care. Right? So that's part of the reason that I started this conversation, this channel. The channel, the podcast, the website, is to make sure that you do know. Okay, so that once you do know, then the only reason that you won't open your mind up in that area, it's because you don't care. And I need to know which one it is so that I know how to kind of perceive you. Whether you're a person who's just ignorant, ignorance is not a bad word, it just means you don't know, or you don't care. And you have to handle that differently. If I'm having a conversation with somebody and they're ignorant of some facts, that's one thing. And I get it. Okay, I know why you feel that way, because you just don't know any better. All right? So I'll give you the facts. At that point, it becomes whether you care or not. And if you don't care, then I have to ask, why don't you care? And that usually comes down to there's something else that's calling to you that you either see more important than that fact. So when Joe Biden said that, I believe he was given a pass by a lot of Black Americans because they believe that there's something more important than that. And that usually comes back to whatever the government needs to do for them. Right? I don't care about that, because if he's in power, he's going to give me what I want. That's how politicians roll. Look at the campaign that he ran. Why did he select Kamala Harris as his VP? Why? What was the primary reason that he accepted Kamala Harris? Was it her policies? Or was it the fact that she was, one, Black, and two, she was a woman? That is a prime example of politicians pandering to an audience. That offends me. Why does that offend me? It offends me because I need you to base your decision on who's the best qualified candidate. Right? Don't. And matter of fact, I felt a little bit violated. to be quite honest with you, that was all around insulting, especially when they made it known that that's why they picked her, because she was quote unquote Black, and because she was a female. So it was all about just getting a vote. This is a person who would become the president of the United States should you trip over your dog again and break your neck. Right? Don't want you to break your neck, Joe. I'm not wishing anything bad on you. But if because you're obviously a little bit uncoordinated. So if something happened, this woman would be the president of the United States, and you didn't pick her as your VP candidate because you thought she would be the best president of the United States. You picked her because she was Black and because she was a female. Right? It's pervasive. It's pervasive in America nowadays. Right? I believe in equality of opportunity. I don't believe in equality of outcomes. I believe in equality of opportunity. But what we have is a reversal of sorts. Almost like to say, okay, let's take an example. I'm going to step to the side for a second. Let's take an example of racism, slavery. Okay, let's talk about slavery. Just for a hot second. Bear with me for a second, because I'm going somewhere. Let's talk about slavery for a second. It was wrong. Right? Slavery was wrong. So you had white people, in some cases Black people, that a lot of people don't know about that, but you had white people, for the most part, owning slaves in America. Not all of them, but the ones who were wealthy and had land and could afford it and all that stuff, they had slaves. It was wrong. So do you right that wrong by switching it around and have Black people owning white people? Or do you stop the practice altogether? The point I'm making is America was about striving for equality of opportunity and having a set of standards that weren't dependent upon your race, your nationality, your color, your creed, but more or less your ability to perform. Your talent that you have, a skill that you have, your ability to perform. So by taking all that and pushing it to the side and saying, this is why I'm selecting somebody as a vice president, my vice president candidate, nominee, whatnot. You're saying that none of that stuff matters because now race is a thing. Gender is a thing. Isn't this what we were trying to get away from? Isn't it? So how can you come out and say it nationally that this is why I'm making this decision? And then everybody cheer it on like it's okay. You know, like nobody notices or nobody's aware of how wrong that is. We constantly see cases of people who were disenfranchised, were mistreated based upon some either physical characteristic or sexual preference or belief, and then it flip-flops. Matter of fact, there was a video. I'll make a video about it later, but there was a video where they were talking about flip-flopping something. You know, it's not. We're not here to flip-flop it. We're here to balance it out, to equalize the opportunity, to level it. Right? We're not here to put somebody else on top. We're here to make sure that anybody can get to the top based upon their knowledge, skills, abilities, performance, and things of that nature. So if you flip it like that, let's you know what? I'm just going to go there because politicians get away with this stuff all the time, and nobody seems to check them on it. So I'm just going to go there. All right. If you look, I'm a black male. And if you say that a white male has a better opportunity than I do because I'm a black male, I feel violated, right? So now you're going to flip-flop it. And you're going to say a black female has the best opportunities because she's a black female. I'm a black male. What does that leave me? I'm still violated, right? Is that fair? Is that fair? So what am I going to do? You're just going to replace the person that I come in second to? You're going to replace the person that I'm a second-class citizen to? And then you're going to do that on national TV and it's okay. And everybody thinks it's fine. We're making progress. That's not progress. Progressives aren't progressive, in my opinion. It's just a different form of disenfranchisement. It's a different form of well, you can't. Well, I guess you can't say racism. In some cases, it is racism because you flip that around, then you have a different race in power. And anyway, that's a different conversation as well. I'm not going to go there in this video. It's going to make the video far too long. But the bottom line is, it's the same result for somebody like me. I'm supposed to accept that. Every time I look to my left and my right, and I see black men who are like cheering. I can't do it. Sometimes I laugh to keep from crying because it's like, that is so stupid. It's almost like a slave, two slaves arguing about who got the best master. My master better than yours because of this. My master better than yours because of that. When it's the individual, you should be a master of yourself. You are the captain of your soul. You are the master. Right? They work for us. Quit. Let's stop trying to pick who to elevate above us based upon these things, and let's just put somebody in a job who works for us, who's capable of the job and will do the best job at the job, not because of their race, their creed, their nationality, all that good stuff. We see politicians peddling this stuff left and right and getting away with it. All right, and then here's another point of contention I have with the politicians that we have running around today, which is why I actually started out pointing out politicians, is the fact that they don't say what they mean. And they often don't mean what they say. You get all these vague messages, or I'll tell you later type stuff, or just something to try to pacify the voter. And then when later on it turns out not to be the case, the media seems not to even realize that, not even remember that. And they get away with it. Somebody got to point this stuff out. I think it needs to stop. That's my personal perspective. So moving right along, let's go to race and genetics. Touched on race, touched on genetics. But coming from a perspective as far as race is concerned, my view is that race is a construct. A lot of people, I might have lost a lot of people there when I say race is a construct, because some people say, well, you look at somebody, isn't it obvious what race they are? Not so much. Not so much. A lot of people don't know that in the United States, um, like slavery, indentured servitude, things of that nature, a lot of things changed, um, albeit subtly, that a lot of people aren't aware of. That's just like race. What race are you? Are you the race of your mother? Are you the race of your father? Is it like a lot of people say, the one drop rule? If there's one drop of black blood in you, then that makes you black. Is that what it is? Um, think about this for a second. Suppose your race depended upon your mother. Um, Whatever your mother is, it's a maternal thing. That's what race you are. So if your mother was white and your father was black, then you're white. A lot of people don't realize that that's the way it was. That's the way it used to be. People were considered what race they were. They were considered to be the race of their mother. Something funny happened in America in the beginning, where that was shifted and it became about what your father was. Um, if your father was black, then you were black. And I think that's where that one drop rule came from. Let's go a little deeper into that. What about people who, and you hear it all the time, you hear black people say, I got Indian in my family, or my one of my great grandparents was white, right? Are they black or are they white? If you look at them and they're obviously black, their skin's obviously black, then you say they're black, right? So what if it's reversed for a white person? They have a great grandparent who is black. Are they white or are they black? Do you just look at what color their skin is right now? What about the families who have siblings in the family who literally have different skin tones? What about situations where you have two people of the same race who are different complexions and they face some of the same obstacles or some of the same advantages that being a different race has? What about the light-skinned person who is more easily accepted, in quote unquote white society because they're a lighter skinned black person in general, or I can't even say in general, in certain instances, you would say they had an advantage because although they're one race, they have a lighter skin, right? Well, what about that same individual dealing with an environment where everybody around them is dark skinned and they ostracize the person, or have little jokes or have little quips because the person's light skinned? They make fun of them then. What about that person? Is it just as simple as a black and white thing? What about everything that's quote unquote in between? What about exotic things? What about mixed kids? What about kids from a biracial home? Is biracial a race? Or all these constructs? Or is it all made up? Now let's go a little bit deeper, because a lot of you probably don't hear some of the things that I hear because of some of the places that I'm able to easily go, and I can listen, maybe say a thing here or two without being looked upon as an outsider unless I talk too much. But what about the cases where we attribute certain qualities to a person's race, i.e., negative qualities? Let's just call it what it is. Let's not say negative. Let's not say the negative and the positive, but let's say good and evil. Some white people were taught that black folks are evil. Some black people were taught that white people are evil. Some black kids grew up hearing terms like the white devil, right? So if you look at that, as far as genetics are concerned, my question to you is this: what percentage of white or black blood or Asian blood, or Polynesian blood, or American Indian blood? What percentage of blood from a particular race imbues you with the qualities of that race? So it's just for an example, from a black male perspective, as a black man, I'm going to use an argument that I've heard before plenty of times, that a white man is evil. So I'm going to use that example. And I say, well, what percentage of white blood makes you evil? What if my grandparent, one of my grandparents, or my great-grandparent was white? Am I just a little bit evil? I just got like, 10% evil in me? What's the tipping point? Is it 50%? What about the biracial kid? If you're black and you're looking at somebody who's mixed, are they evil because their mother was white or their father was white? What percentage does it need to be before somebody becomes evil? Or is it just what suits the narrative at the time? And that's why it's so tricky when you're talking about race and genetics. You have people that go back in history, literally hundreds of years, and use examples from hundreds of years ago to try to establish a reality in present day. What one race did to another hundreds of years ago. But here's my question. But let's say that one race enslaved another race 400 years ago. Does that make the race that enslaved, everybody from that race that enslaved the other race, bad? Let's assume it does. Let's say it does. So let's go back 1,000 years before that. What if the race that was enslaved now enslaved the other race before that? Are they good or evil? What if it went back and forth? Which race is the most evil? Is it the most recent perpetrator? What time in history do you start the clock? At what point does it matter? If we're going to go backwards, how far back should we go? How far back can we go? Another case in point, I look at slavery, and I'm trying to picture the slave trade, right, in my mind. And I just can't picture a bunch of white guys on a boat pulling up in Africa, like, what's up? Hopping out the boat, knocking people in the head saying, come with me. I just don't see it. You're going to roll up on the continent and just start snatching people. Didn't work that way. Somebody had to help. Somebody had to sell people off into slavery. And the people who did that looked just like the slaves they were selling, right? You were a different tribe. I'll go into that tribe thing on a different video or something at another point, but I will say this about that. When we talk about tribe, and everybody thinks you're talking about a race. That's my tribe. Everybody thinks you're talking about genetics. Tribalism is based off culture, right? Largely based off culture, which is why you have two people of the same race in two different tribes with two different cultures. Ain't that a trip? So anyway, what happened to the black people that assisted in the enslavement of other black people? And to get really tricky about it, this is one thing that nobody ever thinks about. What if you would say, okay, well, they're back in Africa. That's why I don't like Africans. Okay, all right. What if 50 years later, 100 years later, one of the descendants from the family that enslaved another family who became slaves in the United States immigrated to the United States? Literally, if you're black, one of the black people next to you could be descendant from somebody who helped to enslave your ancestors. Do you know? You don't know. There's no way to know. Right? So if you make an assumption based strictly on race, I mean, it's really ill-conceived. It's ignorant. Because you don't know what happened in the past. Hell, a lot of us don't even know what happened the previous generation. There's a lot of things that our parents, black and white, did that we're completely unaware of. Some things that would blow your mind, that your parents, your grandparents, because in your mind they were all saints and they led these saintly lives. You have no idea what your grandparents did in their youth or what they were capable of. And there's no way of knowing because you weren't there. Right? So as far as the genetic side of the house or the race side of the house, there's so much misguided information out there, and it's just been amplified. Case in point, Black Panther. Good movie. I enjoyed it. Right? Although I do, well, never mind, I'm not going there, but I enjoyed it. But then I remember when everybody was Black Panther this, Black Panther that. Everybody was excited about Black Panther. And everybody thought of themselves as, like, for lack of a better way to put it, somebody who was starring in that movie. They resonated with somebody who was a star in the movie. Who they didn't resonate with was the people out there that was plowing, turning over dirt. You see, in Wakanda, everybody wasn't a king. Everybody wasn't a queen. In a royal system, there's only one king. There's only one queen. There's only one royal family, which is why we don't have that here in the United States. You want to go to Wakanda, do you want to be the garbage man in Wakanda? No slight to somebody in that profession. But do you want to be on the lower end of the totem pole? When you think about Wakanda, do you think about being on the lower end of the totem pole? Probably not. Probably not. When the United States was founded, all this stuff was in mind. That's why there were no titles of nobility. Yet, what do we see happening here in the United States right now? We have royal families developing. You got presidents whose children become presidents. Right? I'm both sides of the coin there. Take Bush family. In what world does it really make sense for a father and son to both be president? Is that son that good? Or is it his bloodline? That's royalty. That's genetics. That's royalty. Right? Joe Biden, in what world would his son be qualified to go to the Ukraine or be on a board and all that good stuff, getting paid thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars a month? In what world is he that qualified, does not know anything about Ukraine, doesn't speak the language, doesn't know about corporate governance? That's royalty. It's nobility. That's what hinging everything on race and genetics gets you. Right? It gets you an elitist class of people. That's what it turns out being. So history. Touched on a lot about history, but what I want to kind of focus on, as far as this is concerned, is we tend to have people who, in all spectrums, people who, and this is in regards to race, in my perspective of race in America, who look back at history and want to take credit for things that have come in the past because the actors in that story look like them, same race as them. You got people who, their ancestors were Vikings, right? They think they have a status. They think they're noble. I come from noble blood, right? You have people who think that, if I'm descended from a Zulu warrior, then I'm better than somebody else, so I have a certain type of nobility or benefit from that. What makes that scary is the fact that as an individual, you can only claim your own accomplishments. It's great what your father did. It's great what your grandfather did, your great grandfather, your ancestors. But you can't claim those accomplishments. What have you done? What are you doing as an individual? Who would you be if you were disconnected from that and you didn't know about that or their accomplishments? So we have a country full of people running around drawing pride from the accomplishments of others while not acting in keeping with that. That's what it amounts to is a bunch of people trying to take credit for what somebody else has done when they don't deserve that credit. So there you have it. The individual, politics, race, history. Those are my perspectives, and I'm gonna go ahead and start landing this plane here. But I'll tie it up like this. I believe in a certain set of, call them tenets. Some of my training, my non-secular PhD is in metaphysical science and grounded metaphysics. And what basically this came down to is it's understanding things beyond the physical, right? Metaphysics, grounded. So basically, a lot of stuff that I studied, what it came down to was just understanding how people think, understanding how religion works, not studying the religions per se, not studying or telling people or thinking how people should believe. It's just why you believe what you believe. Just trying to understand. I just want to understand people better. What I did learn though is that there's 4 tenets, 3 tenets leading to a 4th tenet that I think are very, very important. First one is self-acceptance. The second one is self-responsibility. The third one is respect for free will. All coming together to the 4th, which is self-actualization, becoming a complete person. If you look at self-acceptance and you look at the way politicians use that, maneuver behind that, let's just take a look at self-acceptance. Self-acceptance is really just about accepting yourself for who you are in the moment. And if you're dissatisfied with that, striving to become who you want to be. It's like a map. You can't get to where you want to go unless you know where you're starting from. If you're overweight, accept it. It's reality. I'm overweight. So now I know where I'm at. I can work from there. But what we see is a society where we're telling people things that they don't think are okay, that they're okay. And we're going so far as to try to ram certain things down people's throats to try to make it popular. If you ask me, it's counterproductive. I say be who you are and accept who you are. And if you're not where you want to be, then strive to get there. But we can't conform an entire society to make you feel okay with yourself and who you are. All right. So the next is self-responsibility. And that just comes down to 2 things, really. Don't ask people to do things that you can and should do for yourself. And allow other people to do things that they can and should do for themselves. So what does that mean as far as this country, my personal view, the political landscape? Basically, stop moving with a "I'll do it for you" mindset. We see it all the time. Politicians talking about what they're going to do for you. I think it was JFK that said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country." A lot of wisdom in that statement, granted, depending on how you look at that. But now we've developed a culture where everybody wants to tailor their vote based upon what somebody's going to do for them. I tend to look at it a little bit differently. I look at it like, who's going to stay out of my way? Who's going to leave me alone? All right. The person I'm going to lean towards is the person who's going to leave me alone the most. That's what's important to me. Stop trying to dictate my life. Stop trying to force me to be included in things that I don't want to be included in. I don't want to play. If I don't want to play your game, leave me alone. To the extent possible. We're all going to play a little bit. But come on, man. Don't try to force people to participate in your grand agenda that they don't even want. Stop trying to make people buy things they don't want. Stop trying to make people buy things they don't need. Stop trying to force participation just because you know that's the only way your system will work, is you force people to play. The whole goal should be to try to create an environment where you don't have to force it. It succeeds because the will of the people, you can see how people move, and you can figure out how to make that work, How do we make that work with people moving on their own to the extent possible without trying to turn everybody into a collective? So that's how I look at that. Respect for free will. That goes right back to it. Two things. Respect the free will of others. I may not like your decisions. I may not like your choices, but as long as it's not hurting me, then I'm not trying to fight it. Do you. Do you. But at the same time, I demand that you respect my free will. In other words, allow me to do me, right? Give me that room. Give me that freedom. That's what I was just talking about with society trying to, like the Borg, assimilate you. You will be assimilated. That's how I look at, and to not make this video ultra political, but that's how I look at what's going on the far left a lot. They're like the Borg. You will be assimilated. You will participate. You will be a part of what we want to have going on. We're gonna force you to. You know, to me, that's almost like, looking up one day and somebody trying to stick a needle in your arm, saying that it's for the good of everybody else. You will take this shot. And by the way, put this mask on your face. But I'm not going to go into that because that's another rabbit hole that I don't want to go to. So those three tenets, I think, self-acceptance, self-responsibility, respect for free will, I think those can go a long way toward straightening out this mess we have. So we can have a lot more self-actualized, complete people running around. Who can kind of see things for what they are. They can listen and perceive things for what they are. And you won't get away with just telling them just anything. They can think for themselves. They can think critically. We can use logical thinking. So that's kind of like my position, some of my thoughts as what is essentially a middle-aged black man in the United States of America. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think about some of the things that I've said. And I'm not the adversarial type. I will stand up for what I believe in, but I'm not here to argue with anybody. I just need to know how you think. I enjoy learning how you think. I like to know what's going on around me because I don't want to be surprised one day. I don't want to just look up one day and see the tanks rolling down the street. I want to see it coming. So I can do what little I can about that. So there it is. I just wanted to share those thoughts with you. As I build up my platforms, I think it's a good idea that people know where I'm coming from and why I'm saying some of the things that I'm saying. It'll resonate with some. Some people will probably despise me for it. I don't really care much about that. Probably don't want to spend much time with those people anyway. So on that note, if you managed to hang out this long, I didn't realize how long I was rattling. My dad used to call me motor mouth. I guess that's true. But I didn't realize how long I was talking. If you managed to hang around this long, and you're on a platform for which you can do that, probably YouTube, subscribe, follow the channel, follow me, and let's have some conversation. Let's share some of that and see if we can maybe come across some other people who feel the same way. So if you like it, think somebody else might want to hear it, share it, and definitely comment to let me know what your thoughts are. Be sure to check in and visit me at pointingoutpoliticians.com. It's in its infancy, just a baby website, but it'll get big over time. YouTube, just a baby YouTube channel, but it'll grow over time. Love to have you along for the journey on that note. Take care and peace.